Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We know that in light of recent events surrounding COVID-19, a lot more of you are working remote and in a position where you're using some of these Office 365 applications a little bit more than maybe you were prior. So whether you're new or an experienced user, we're glad you're here with us today. And we've got our in-house experts to go over some demonstrations of different features and functionalities of the tool that you may not be familiar with, or maybe you are and need some brushing up on your skills. So this is meant to be an interactive live event. So I will be monitoring the Q&A throughout. So feel free to shoot your questions and I'll either interrupt them as they're going or we'll get to it at the end. And I promise if we don't get to it today that we'll bake it into a future training, or you can leave me your email and I will send you a personalized follow-up with some tips and tricks around whatever it is you're looking to learn today. So with that, I'm gonna send it over to Tina and Sean.
Hey guys, I thought I would just chime in here and then I'm gonna let Tina take over and I'll help along the way, but thanks again for doing this with us. Again, we're trying anything and everything we can to try to give back to the community. So if training helps and you guys at home can benefit from what we're gonna do over the next bunch of weeks, great. Hopefully we see some positive outcomes coming out of this whole situation and we're able to spend more time with our families. One of the things that I wanted to bring up at the beginning and something I thought was really cool today was that a really good friend of mine and restaurant owner who everybody knows here in San Diego by the name of Luna Grill, we partnered up with them, and in a nutshell, I'll give you some ideas. As you can imagine, where restaurants like the Luna Grill, being closed lately, have sort of came up with a new plan to get food to people out there in the community. So what Luna's doing with us is there's actually a product called the Good Guy card, and it's a $5 card that ultimately is just $5 that you get through an online e-gift card that you can sign up for. And ultimately every single $5 card that goes out, it donates one meal to companies like the San Diego Food Bank. We're working with some of our other nonprofits, Catholic Charities, and just trying to make sure that whether it be elderly, kids, families in need, we get food to them through Luna Grill. So we also have an offering that we'll bring up at the end for you guys, whereas if we can enable products like Teams for the company, we'll donate to that fund, the Good Guy card, and ultimately get food out to these different people around who need help in the community. So anything we can do to help, we're here for you guys. But in the meantime, let's talk about training.
Okay, and just really quick before we get started, the idea behind this training was to help end users who were just getting started using some of the remote tools. So we're going to be starting at a really foundational level with how to log into the productivity suite and how to share documents. Some of you today might be a little bit more advanced, and so we want you to know this is a series, and we will have more accelerated topics as weeks go by. So if you find that you want to learn some more about how to facilitate or own a team, then check back in with us next week because we will be sharing some more information about those topics as well. All right, so I am going to get us started. And like I said, we're going to start off with, I just got shoved at home and I know I have this Office 365 suite, but I never use it. How do I even get to it? And it's really as simple as logging in through your web browser. So I'm going to just go ahead and type Office 365. And it is going to ask me how I want to log in. I'm going to log in through my work account, and it knows my password. You might have to enter your passwords, and it's going to go ahead and sign in. What you're seeing here is we use multi-factor authentication to make sure that as we move everything out to the cloud, the right people are accessing the right applications. And so it's just validating that I am actually Tina. And I have a code popping up on my cell phone. You guys probably use this all the time with some of your other applications. So I'm going to pop that in here and verify that I am who I say I am. Okay, so for the sake of our conversation today, we're really focusing around Teams. We have been hearing feedback from customers that that is a great platform for them to stay connected, collaborate while they're all disparate locations and working remotely. So I'm going to go into Teams and we're going to start off with inviting some people to a meeting using the Teams application. So we give this a moment to load. And of course, live demos, it's been fast as lightning all day. Okay, so if you're really, really new to Teams and you've never been in here, one thing I do want to just point out is your navigation falls along the left side of the toolbar. So I'm gonna look for my calendar because what I wanna do is schedule a meeting, and I'm gonna click here. This calendar is really syncing with my Outlook calendar that I'm used to looking at every day. So I have a bunch of meetings in here already that I set up either in Teams or in Outlook. It doesn't matter, and that's part of the beauty of the productivity suite is that everything's talking to each other and you don't have to worry about duplicating your efforts. So here I'm going to go ahead and add a new meeting to the calendar. And we'll just pop in test meeting for today's purposes. I'm gonna invite my counterparts on this webinar, Christy Keating, as well as Sean Farrell. And you're gonna see a couple of things. Right now, Teams is giving me some suggested meeting times. It knows that we're already in other meetings. And so if I sent this right this moment, probably they wouldn't be able to be in the meeting with me. So it's saying you should probably do it around 5 or even 5:30. There's also, maybe that doesn't work for me because I have plans, a scheduling assistant that'll help me look even further out. So if I want to look at Wednesday or Thursday for my meeting, it's here trying to help me find good times for all of us to meet. And I'm gonna go back to my calendar invite. This little guy is the same you use in Outlook. It can do that reoccurring meeting for you, scheduled weekly or daily. And then you can add channels to your meeting. So you can conduct your meeting and add a channel. I would show you that, but that actually will pull up some of our customers and I don't want to disclose that information today. So I'm just going to let you play around with that. Add a location, that would be internally. If I had multiple conference rooms, I could invite people in my company who are on site and they would know where to go along with my remote counterparts and we could all join together. And then, you guys know this stuff. This is how you would just go ahead and make your edits, whatever text or agenda you want to build in. The only difference here that you'll really want to note is that you want to, instead of attaching a document, you're going to link it in Teams. Let's see. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. And so I'm going to go grab a quick document link for us. I'm heading into OneDrive to do this. And this is my file, like my G drive, my P drive. Many of you are used to using a file system that looks similar. And instead of being on my local computer or server, it's just here in the cloud for me. And so I can actually pretty quickly grab a link to this document, come back to my Teams meeting, and I'm gonna go ahead and insert it. So I can give people the information they need to look at before they get to the meeting by just embedding a quick link to the document.
Hey, Tina, can we back up for a second? Someone was asking about what actually a channel is. So can you touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. So if we take a quick step back, let's see, maybe we'll do it this way. Actually, maybe I'll do it this way. Sorry, we'll do it this way. As we're looking down the sidebar here, you'll see that there are a bunch of teams, right? And so this team is sales and marketing. I'm director of sales at Managed Solution. I own this team. And within this team, there are multiple channels. So I have my team that are all members of this team. And within this team, we've segmented out different topics as a way to categorize and organize our information. So we have a general channel, which is kind of just, here's what everybody needs to know who hops into this team. But we also have some specialized information that maybe not everybody wants to see and that just certain people on the team will be paying attention to. So that could be our channel partners. Danielle is one of our teammates. She works a lot in the channel. We want everybody to have access to it because they might need it at a certain point in time, but it also gets a lot of information that's very specific for Danielle, for Christy, and for myself. So it's just a way that we're organizing our information.
And we'll dive into this a little bit deeper on next week's training, so be sure to tune in for that. Yes, a channel is like a sub-team, to answer your question. That's correct. And then Tina, if you go back to scheduling, about the scheduling assistants, the question is, so the suggested time is looking at the invited parties' calendars and available times. That's correct, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so Teams is pulling information from your calendar and it's helping you predict when would be a good time. And some of you probably have a lot of meetings and have sometimes overscheduling, which can get a little hard to figure out what you need to be doing. So it's trying to help prevent that common occurrence in workplace where people are double booking your calendar. Are we good? Okay.
Yes.
So now I've got my meeting invite. It's all set to go. I'm going to just go ahead and click send. And it's showing up right now on my calendar, this test meeting. And when I open it, it's now embedded a link for this person. So it will send them a notification. They can hop on and join from here, or they can also just click a little button here and join this meeting. And they'll all be in a meeting together.
Tina, we're getting some questions about external users, so people outside the company. What does that look like?
So inviting external users into a Teams meeting,
yeah.
You can absolutely do that. And you just send an invite and they get a link and they click the link and they can join your Teams meeting. Is there anything else I should cover about that?
I would just add, you won't be able to use the scheduling assistant in that case. It would only show for internal employees.
Oh, yeah, good point.
So, but you can hash that out via email or however you'd like. The other thing is that I wanted to mention when we were chatting about channels, to clarify, because someone had a question about that. They're now at the Teams level. You can have a certain amount of people within that team. So the sales and marketing team, for example, our sales and marketing team are all within that team. And it used to be at each channel, no matter if you were in the team, you had access to all the channels, but they've actually rolled out features recently that you can have permissions at channel levels. So I wanted to clarify that because there was a couple questions coming in for that as well.
Yeah, I would say one of the things that people ask a lot is we create a team and then channels within that team. So I have a finance channel, obviously, for our finance department. Can I give certain people access to it and others not? So in some cases, my whole organization can see the team that's finance, but they couldn't actually get into it. So you can set both read-write user access, as they call it. So people can maybe read something or get the ability to co-author or collaborate. But ultimately, if you don't invite them to that team, they won't be able to join it. And in addition to, one of the big things people ask about all the time is, what if I wanted to create an external team? And a simple example that we have is we do a lot of our projects where we create an internal team, our PMs and our engineers, and then we create external users so they can get real-time information as to how projects are progressing. So it's a pretty unique tool for doing things inside and outside of the organization.
And then a couple people are asking the max number of participants in a Teams meeting. And as far as I know, it's high hundreds or 1,000, something like that.
Yeah, it can be thousands of people. It's all about the licensing ultimately and how you're licensed internally. And then people from the outside, let's say you're not technically licensed to join a conference like a video conference or an audio conference, you can still ultimately join the conference as long as the internal, say in this case, managed solution invites you to it. So people can participate in, big conferences across many organizations.
Okay. Thanks, guys. So
we have another question.
No, that's good. I'm glad people are engaged.
Yeah. So do external users have to join a meeting via the web or computer, or is there an audio option to call in, for example?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you have your full voice solution deployed in Teams, you do have the option for a dial-in number. If you're using Teams for chat and collaboration and you don't have your voice system through Teams, there is not a dial-in number at this time. They'd need to be in front of their computer.
Thank you. So I think that answers the question of adding a call number. If there's a specific call number you wanted to use, this is a separate question, you could certainly put that into the invite as well. Someone asked, this is funny, the three of us talked about this earlier. They're asking why we're using Zoom instead of Teams right now. And the answer, I'll answer that because I head up our marketing. And the reason, there's a couple reasons for that. One is for GDPR and California Privacy Act policies. We don't want you to see who else is on this webinar right now. And with Teams, we're not sure if we could do that yet. And then the other thing is with our marketing automation software and systems that we're using, there's not a seamless integration built between the two right now. But I know that they're working on that. And once they do, we will be switching to Teams to host these kinds of webinars. But internally, we use Teams for all of our meetings. So yeah, we talked about that, and it's funny that it came up here. So the other question that just came in as well is how can you see who is authorized to view the team? And that's done at the ownership level and the admin level. Whoever creates the team can control it. And that's something we're going to dive into a little bit deeper next week. But Tina, if you want to just show really quick what we can show them.
So I mean, we can just really quickly there. Here is the deeper, anytime you see these little ellipses for Microsoft, it kind of means there's more. And so here we could get into managing the channel and seeing who is a part of the team, and then even another layer of permissions on the team. But I think we'll try to stay a little bit on topic and table that one for next week in terms of just going all the way into it.
Thanks. And then to clarify on if Teams offers an audio bridge or not with the voice integration, that's license-based, correct? The question
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
So someone asked to clarify, does Teams offer an audio bridge or not? And that's dependent on the licensing, correct?
Yep. It's dependent on the level of licensing and whether or not you've deployed your voice system in Teams. We have customers that use it for their full voice solution, in which case, absolutely. If you're just using parts of the software, which are the chat and the collaboration, then no, you don't get the phone number for somebody to call in.
But let me be clear in saying that the concept in our first thing here with Teams is that we want to be able to enable people in and outside of the organizations to do a conference via video and audio. And you guys can do that, but you're going to have the application, whether it's what they call the web-based app for Teams or the client-based, meaning it goes on your computer, downloaded to do that. But just like any other voice system, in essence, if you guys are going to start using dial-in numbers, say you have a direct dial-in for a conference bridge, that requires the full voice setup for Teams, which we're not necessarily saying you should do that today. We're saying it's an option down the road.
Okay, so really quick, I just wanted to put a little bow on this just to let you also know that now that I'm the organizer of this meeting, you can see that Christy has actually gone in and accepted the meeting. So it's really easy for me to track who I've invited and whether or not they're planning on attending.
Ooh, I should come too then. I just thought about that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so now what we wanted to move on to is sharing a document in Teams. So I am going to go into this team for the purpose of this demonstration. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put a document into this team. So I'm sharing the information with this team, and I want everybody to be able to see it. So this pane, it's really similar to like a Facebook or a lot of the chat communication type applications. So I can just come in here and say, I'm going to link a document. It went straight, interesting. Let me see if I can do it again.
And if any of you guys have used the product Slack before, it's very similar. The difference is that obviously this comes as part of your Office 365 suite with Teams. So I'm sure you've seen similar tools like this for, we'll call it the hub of information to communicate.
It's giving me a couple of options here. It's saying I can look at recent documents I've been interacting with and just upload those. I can look at some other teams' channels and maybe pull a document from one team to another, or I could go into OneDrive, or I could upload from my computer. So I thought since we were in the cloud today, we'd stay in the cloud and I would go to OneDrive and pull in a document from there. So this is uploading. It knows, so I was practicing earlier, and it knows that I have 2 in here. So I'm gonna just keep both. It's asking me if I really wanna do that, right? So there's a lot of intuitive stuff built into the software to help you from making some mistakes. I'm gonna go ahead and keep both right now. And so once I've pulled this document in here, nobody really knows it's here except for me. So I wanna make sure that other people are seeing this document. And we do that by what we call notifications in Teams. And to notify somebody, you wanna use that @ symbol in front of the team name or the person name. So I'm gonna notify the sales and marketing team. So that means everybody who's a member of this team is gonna get a little notification that says, hey, Tina just uploaded a document, maybe you should check it out. I'm also gonna notify some people individually. So I'll notify Christy, so I want her to be aware, and I'll notify Sean. So it's also kind of, as I'm typing, giving me some recommendations on who I might wanna just click on because it knows because it's predictive of my text. So you'll see that these people have a little hyperlink. I'm gonna go ahead and say, check out this document. And send it off. So that's a really easy way to share information in Teams.
Now Tina, this
okay.
is just so people know, Outlook is still the trusted source of where we, I guess, collaborate or communicate, I would say, for everybody out there as they're adapting to these new technologies. But these type of notifications are going to come through into Outlook, right? If I have my mobile phone, I'm going to see that somebody sent me something.
Yeah, that's great. It can come through your mobile phone. You'll also notice up here, there's a little activity. There's some red numbers here. That means people are reaching out to me in individual chat or a notification, as well as via email. So you can customize your notifications to have Teams communicate with you how you want to be notified. But the other thing I wanted to show you is if you have this document here and you're in Teams, it's also automatically going to add the file under your Files tabs. So it's right here. And that way you don't have to scroll through that pane if you want to go back to it, right? That reading pane of it, you don't have to try and find a document from 6 months ago. You can just hop into your files and there you go. It's right where you put it.
And if you notice, there's those 3 little like flashy dots next to it on the left of to the left of the document name. If you haven't seen a document when you first go in, it's going to be like, hey, this is new. So that's essentially what those are telling you. So once you've seen them, it won't mark them as such, but it's a nice way to say like, oh, this is what's new in this folder and I might need it.
And if you get even more confused by where to go find stuff, there's actually a search command up at the top there, which I use religiously as I've found out because my whole company uses Teams now. And ultimately, sometimes I'm looking for things that I know enough about to be dangerous. And that helps me find things just through a quick search.
Yeah, I love the search function. I can find people, I can find comments, I can find documents, conversations.
It's really reliable.
I use it all the time. Okay, so we now learned how to put a document into Teams, how we can notify some of our counterparts that it's up there. Another thing that people have asked us about is, well, how does this collaboration thing in Teams work? How can we, or in even Office 365 work? How can we all be working together on one document at the same time? So it's a big piece of the productivity suite. And I've just hopped back over to OneDrive. This is all really seamless once you get familiar with the tools moving from Teams to OneDrive. but I'm opening the file in our Word browser online. And this is where I can collaborate with people in real time. So if you were working on this document and it's just in your Word on your desktop, you're not going to be seeing this interaction that's happening right here with Sean typing in the document. It's because we're in the online version that this is possible. So I can see what he's doing. He's editing the document. Christy and I have worked on this document together in a more traditional fashion where I've left comments, she's commented, we've had a running, dialogue as we work together to provision this document. And there are multiple ways that you guys can work together in collaboration while you're not in the office together. And so this is helpful to get stuff happening in real time. Any questions?
You're going to show us how to share a document both in Teams and then in OneDrive, correct?
Yeah, so in Teams, right, we did that already. If we're in OneDrive here, there's a couple of things to notice. One, I can see right now that Christy's also in this document, and so is Sean, right? His edits are showing up with that purple bar. Christy's comments are in green. Here I am in the red, so we're color-coded to help differentiate. Our initials are popping. And then if I wanted to share again, I could go right here, and I could add anybody else that I wanted to this document and send them either the link, or I could send it through an email and attach it, and they would get the Word version of the document that way. So it's really easy to share and bring more people in. We also have another layer of settings here where I might say, I'm going to go ahead and share this, but I'm not going to let people edit it. So there's some other permissions that we can apply to this document as we look at how we want to share it in the organization. And then if you want to, at any time, maybe you want some more advanced features of the Word application, you can open it in your desktop app. Just remember, it takes away the collaboration piece where you guys are working on it together.
Awesome, thank you.
I think it's important. So from Outlook, which is where we start most of our day, or we sort of start meetings if we weren't using Teams, how simple is it to just create that Teams invite from Outlook?
Oh yeah, so I'll pull up really quickly. I live in Outlook like everybody else. And so if I'm in my Outlook calendar, again, those calendars are syncing back and forth. But right here, I can just create a new Teams meeting from my Outlook calendar. And I can do the same thing that I did in Teams in Outlook. And I can add Sean, and I can bring in Christy, and right here is the meeting. And then maybe I don't want to do that link. I could actually attach the document that I wanted to insert here, or the agenda, whatever I wanted to do, right?
And then
here's our document.
Tina, and then I think it's really cool. Like the thing I do so much is I'll get an email from somebody, and instead of me even having to reply and say, let's schedule it for tomorrow at 10, I can actually just take the actual email and you just create a Teams meeting by just doing the reply with meeting option in Outlook too, which is super efficient for me who's scheduling meetings all day long.
Yeah, that makes it really easy.
Yeah, let me see here. Don't save changes. So if I'm just in my email.
We're putting you on the spot, Tina.
Here, wait, I thought I just had one from you. Okay, here, Sean. So I'll say meeting. And then I'm just gonna go straight into my meeting. And from here, I'm gonna make it a Teams meeting, and we're off and running again. So it's very intuitive. The tools are intertwined, and it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it to hop from one to the other. You don't have to worry about being in Outlook or being in Teams. Either way, the person will get the meeting invite.
Tina, so good question, and this is a big one that comes up all the time. I want to share a Word doc with an outside entity, a customer of mine. Can I do that? And then ultimately, what rights does that person have to say, I'll make this up for the gentleman who asked, editing the document? Can they do all that with me?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can share the document internally or externally, and you can give them permission to edit the document. Let me go back to, see if this is good. So
Yeah,
here's
and
some, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no. And another great question came up was essentially, Teams, is it a replacement for other webinar services? The short answer is yes. I would say, in complete honesty, is that as people were hearing this throughout the week, because so many people are deploying this right now for just a simple chat, conferencing, and audio or video bridges, people are finding, wow, there's all these teams and channels and ways to sort of centralize my organization into this quote unquote hub. And so the answer is that we're finding that a lot of people are starting to see more here than they thought it, but it is comparable to just a web conferencing tool, but of course it adds all the other features into it so you can run your business directly out of Teams. So I just want to delineate between the two and saying it's not just a pure conferencing tool, although it can be used for that.
Yes.
Yep. Agreed.
The other quick thing I wanted to just show you guys, Sean asked about it, or somebody on the webinar was asking about it, is here is a way for you to manage access to the document. So you can stop sharing at any time. You can give access, and this isn't going to limit me to people in my organization. It's going to allow me to pick whoever, whatever email address I pop in there. And then it's also going to I'm going to be able to do some permissioning of saying you can edit or you can't edit that document. Another thing that comes up quite a bit is people are always interested in, well, what happens if I want to revert to a previous version of the document? What if I don't like the edits somebody else made? I shared it with them and they messed up my document. And so version history is super easy in OneDrive and throughout the suite of products. And so you can see here the date it was created, who created it, the edits that were made, when it was modified. And at any point I can revert back to a previous version by, I can open it, I can restore it, or I can ultimately delete it if I want to. And I can do that because I own the document because I made the document.
And then you got a lot of great questions, Tina. So as an administrator, the person who's creating sort of the team and then the channels and sharing it outside of the organization, can I manage that, so that, obviously certain people have certain access?
And again,
at the different teams level, yeah.
At the teams level, so if you're really wanting to drill into managing the content of the document, I would do it from OneDrive. When we look at teams, we have some ability, right, to manage access at the document level, but it's not as robust as at the OneDrive level. I got into a different team.
And in a whole nother light, you guys, the concept of like rights management for things that we're sending, whether it's email or stuff in Word or Excel, where we want to eliminate certain things like sending out social security numbers or, certain types of financials or something that should not be sent, or we've, said we cannot. For compliance reasons, you can limit those, but you just have to have tools to do that, which are kind of more around the security talks that, we'll be having down the road.
So here's just a quick look at the options you have from Teams. And you can see that while you can do some management of the document, it's much more robust when we had OneDrive open and we were looking at, who can manage, who can actually access, and who can edit. You don't get that feature here.
Two more questions, Tina, that are really good ones, actually. So PDF signatures, if somebody wants to send a PDF through Teams, which, by the way, you can save other document types into Teams. We had a few questions like that, but let's say a PDF, if I wanted to say, sort of use a DocuSign or other platform to have electronic signature, can it be done through Teams? And the answer, I'll just answer it, is yes. And then, but one here, which is interesting, if you remove access from a document, Tina, say I sent you a Word doc, I guess, Tina, and then, I decided, I want to revoke that and take it back. Would that person be able to keep the original version?
So the permissions are, if you allow them to download the document and they download the document onto their device and then you revoke their privileges, they can't now access the link version, right? But they've downloaded it. So you want to think of permissioning in a couple of ways. Do you want to give them access to download the document? Yes or no? And then do you want to continue to give them access to the online version of the document? So it's kind of layered. So any more questions around document control? Are we good? I want to be mindful of time. We're about 5 minutes over. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to touch on for you guys is just that you can have Teams on your phone, and it is so cool. I love it. You have videos on your phone of people talking to you, running your meetings. Like this little picture here is really how it looks. You can basically work from your phone. It's pretty great. So I just wanted to make sure that you know, if you're using Teams and you're new to Teams, check out the app for your phone and download it. It's free for you, and it'll extend the services to your mobile phone.
Awesome. I wanted to touch on one thing. Someone was asking again about the attendee limit as far as a webinar replacement. And yes, there's limitations varied by the different licensing types, just like any webinar platform like Zoom. They have different layers. GoToWebinar and the other various ones all have different plans and pricing based around how many different features and functionalities, as well as limits to amount of attendees. So I just want to make sure we clarified that.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody was looking for the specific, so numbers of people who could be part of a team, specific is 1,000 members, and then the number of members in that team could be upwards of 5,000. I know the questions around how many people could I essentially have in my audio or video bridge, and it's anywhere from, it's all in the licensing, but you can have up to 10,000 if you wanted to. But I think out of the box, it's up to 250 immediately is what I think the limit is. And I'll look more into that, but I think that was published back in February this year, if I recall.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. And then did we get to I want to make sure we got all these questions. There's a lot coming in. If we remove access to the document, did we talk about storing on the local version? Did we get to that question?
We did. Yeah. So just really quick, if you give permission for somebody to download the document and they save it, and then you revoke the rights, they have that document downloaded. If you share a link with them and they click in and open the link and you say, no, they cannot download the document, then they cannot access the document after you revoke their rights.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure we didn't miss anyone here. I think that's all the questions we have right now.
Okay.
Is there anything else you wanted? Does online revoke it immediately? Will it kick them out of the session? So say someone has it open on their desktop or on their web browser.
Yeah, in essence, we're hosting that link. So if we set the permissions right and say a Word doc, they're an Excel file that our finance team say shares with somebody else, but it's only through a link, they're going to be able to view it with Excel online per se, if that's what they have, and then ultimately we can pull that link back immediately if we choose to. It's when we give I don't want to call it the wrong permissions, but when we give permissions to organizations to essentially download the doc, at that point they can pull it down to their local client desktop, or I guess server or cloud, and ultimately that's when they have that version of whatever it was we allowed them to have. So you just got to be careful with what you're giving out to external users or potentially even internal employees within your organization.
And we have, I mean, we could go on all day about information protection and rights management. It's a big topic, and we're touching on it very, very lightly here today with kind of the permissions and sharing in Teams.
Yeah, so make sure you guys join us. We're going to be doing these weekly for the unforeseen future, and we'll dive into this a little bit more. One of the questions that came up too, I wanted to just mention, someone was asking about the different types of files that you can share and things like that. And yeah, it doesn't have to be a Word or Excel file like we touched on. And to add to that too is Teams also has, I think, over 75 different third-party integrations. So I know teams using like Zendesk, and there's a SurveyMonkey and other things. There's a lot of different integrations, and we can certainly dive into that on a separate training session, because that can get really detailed and take a lot of time. And I want to be respectful today. Like we said, we're a little bit over, but I appreciate the engagement here, and I hope we answered some of your questions. Do you guys have anything else to add today?
No, I would just say, you want to start. And we can't change the habits of our users. Well, they're hard to change, let's put it that way, but people are in need of these conferencing tools. So we know we can set up meetings very quickly from Outlook just based off an email. We can do it from our phones, mobile devices just as well. People ask me all the time, does a handset have anything to do with this? The answer is no. I mean, we're doing everything from our laptops or our mobile phones. I'm often just hitting the join button to join a team meeting in our, say, 8:45 scrums. driving along. So all of this can be done, video included, even from your mobile device. So it's very easy to set up, and that's the most important thing. But all this other, we'll call it channels and teams and just the other applications that are tied into Teams. If you look across the top there on Tina's screen, you'll see like a plus button up there. There is so many different applications tied into Microsoft Teams that you can just add to your team or channel to help you in your everyday work. So I think, like Christy said, that would be for a different time. But ultimately, I'll give you one thing that we're seeing a lot of right now. Companies are trying to centralize data because everybody is working from home and potentially saving data offline into products like Dropbox or Box or other third-party storage tools, G Drive. There are tools built into Office 365 called Microsoft Flow where you can automate workflows to take that document and send it off into a SharePoint or a Microsoft or a OneDrive or even Teams like we showed you today, where those documents get centrally stored. And that's super important as we've allowed the workforce to sort of work from home at this point in time. So something to think about.
Okay, well, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today, and also thank you guys for all your great questions. I really appreciate it. It helps us so much. And if you have any other questions that we didn't answer, we'll certainly do everything we can to reach out to you individually and make sure those questions are answered. And we'd love your feedback for next week. So if there are topics that did not get covered and you really want us to make sure we touch on them, just let us know, and we are happy to customize some of these for you and make sure that we touch on those topics.
And if you have colleagues that didn't get a chance to join, we will send out the recording. So feel free to forward it to friends, colleagues, whatever you need. So thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.